Riley Herbst from 2311 Racing here, and you know what grinds my gears? Waiting for coffee. But instead of counting frappes and lattes, I fire up Chumba Casino. No apps, no fuss, just fun social casino games to pass the time. By the time my coffee's ready,
order for Riley.
I've already taken a few victory laps. Next time you're stuck waiting, make it entertaining. Play for free at ChumbaCasino.com. Let's Chumba.
Sponsored by Chumba Casino. No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
What up, gunfighters? Hey, a little bit different. These episodes came out on Alpha Male Podcast. I know not everybody listens to Alpha Male Podcast. In the things I don't like about Norway episode, I think there is some applicable lessons for people in this audience. So I'm going to combine those two episodes into one for Gunfighter Life. Things I don't like about Norway. I think that's where a majority of the lessons lie. So I'm going to put it first. It'll be in reverse order. Things I don't like about Norway. And then if you find Norway intriguing, things I liked about Norway. I'm going to put that in here for you guys that don't check out the other podcast. Hopefully you appreciate it. Have a blessed day. All right, gang. Things I don't like about Norway. That's what we're going to talk about today on Alpha Male Podcast, where I talk about what it means to be a man the right way with God at the center of your life. Judeo-Christian values. This is part 2. Part 1 was things I like about Norway. Part 2 is things I don't like about Norway. If you're not a regular listener, you're just a Norwegian or Norse curious, and you clicked onto this, you might want to check out the bio link in the show notes for some context. I try and put biblical theology first in my life, and that's no different in this podcast. I don't apologize for that. If you don't like it, go listen to something else. There's going to be a lot of that in this episode. Also, a couple of caveats. This is things I don't like about Norway. I did one on things I like about Norway, so bear that in mind. Also, more importantly, a lot of these things are just my preferences. Unless it's a biblical theology thing, like a shall or shall not, as to what's best for man and how we ought to live, and hopefully there'll be a bit of that in here. Hopefully a lot of that in here. But unless it's that, right, you don't have to agree. I'll throw in some lighthearted stuff to hopefully break it up. All right, enough of that. Let's talk about things I don't like about Norway. Bro, your peanut butter selection is weak. You gotta up your peanut butter game. I talked about I like the Norwegian diet as a whole. In fact, I think it's a great diet. People are giants over there. It's like the land of giants. But I have this against it. Your peanut butter selection is weak. There's like a few brands, and I went to your big chains there, your, Extra, Kiwi, like the big stores, and I went to a couple of the bigger cities, Oslo, Bergen. Your peanut butter selection needs work. It should be its own aisle. Right? I love all the seafood in Norway, but maybe get rid of the fish pudding, which is a thing there, and maybe get some more different kinds of peanut butter. Maybe stop importing the Doritos and the junk food and import more peanut butter. There's a big debate here in America on the preference of chunky peanut butter versus creamy peanut butter. The people that like chunky peanut butter better and the people that are wrong. You need more chunky peanut butter in your life. All right, a little bit of brevity there. Now let's get serious, Norway and Americans, because this hopefully is lessons you can apply to your life. You are letting a beautiful heritage die. You were once leading crusades. You were staunch, willing to die for Christianity, warrior Christians. You cared about Christianity. You built some beautiful, beautiful stave churches. I saw the craftsmanship with my own eyes that your forefathers labored and died to build a beautiful culture of light set on a hill as a beacon of beautiful Christianity. And you're letting it die. I was thinking about this concept before, but I went into one of your old churches. I think it was in L.A.P.D. And I just happened to go in there when there was a tour guide in there, and she was a Norwegian. Somebody asked about the church in Norway today, and what she said infuriated me. Like a godly anger, like I was furious. Either she was telling the truth and it really angered me, or she was lying and it really angered me. Or she was ashamed of it, which really angers me. Probably the worst is if she's telling the truth. That is probably the worst. I have a feeling she wasn't. She said that, yeah, in Norway we're Protestant, but people don't really practice anymore. People don't really care anymore. It's kind of a nominal thing. And I don't remember exactly what she said. She was kind of apologetic that they were Protestant Christians. What she should have said is, yeah, we're proudly and, historically and currently Protestant Christians that love our faith and love Christ and are willing to die for him. That's what she should have said. And if you don't like it, get out. Or if you don't like it, why are you here? This is a Christian nation. You can turn to the light, embrace Christ, and live in this beautiful tradition, or you can deny him and burn in hell for eternity. And she kind of, I think, sadly was being honest, that a lot of people there don't seem to care. They see it as like, oh, it's a tradition. We'll go to these beautiful churches on our holidays, for more of a tradition thing. No, it's not for the tradition. It's for Christ. Your forefathers labored. One of the things I saw, it was one of those old churches, there was a picture of an artifact they uncovered. It was basically a wooden shovel they used to irrigate the land. Somebody was out there by hand irrigating this church with a shovel. Your forefathers. I saw the size of those stones that they hauled and stacked. I saw the beautiful carvings of those churches. They did that out of love. They did that because they loved Christ. What happened to you? Now, this is not an individual. There are hopefully many individual Christians that are strong for the faith, that are willing to die and suffer and be persecuted and ridiculed and ostracized for their faith in Christ. Hopefully there are many of those. But it seems to me, as a culture, looking on it from an outsider, that you guys have largely turned your back on Christ. Being nominal Christians, being, part of the state Protestant church just because it's tradition, not because you actually love Christ. You have not progressed past the church. You have regressed into a false garbage pagan theology, whether it's old school paganism or new school paganism, evolution. You're just floating on some stupid ball through space that's random time and chance. You worship the environment. Oh, environmentalism's going to save you. No, none of that stuff is going to save you. Science is not going to save you. Christ is going to save you, and you had best remember it. Norway, you had better get back to Christ. We see this as a theme throughout history in the Old Testament. We see it with God's people. When they focus on God and what he wants them to do, they flourish. We'll come back to this later, but when they turn their back on him, they are either led away captive, they are destroyed, they are invaded with a small remnant leaving, forced into obscurity, forced into exile. That's what happens to nations when they follow Christ and when they don't follow Christ. When they follow God and do what they're supposed to, when they follow the commandments of what God says a nation should do, and when they don't. So, before it's too late, turn back to Christ, Norway. That is the most important thing for your nation, period. You have not progressed past that. You have regressed from the beauty and light that your forefathers died for. All right, let's try and break this up with some little bit more levity here. You need more dogs in Norway, right? This is not a shall, this is not a commandment. It's just some light levity. There are very few dogs per capita in Norway, in the cities, in the country. Like, why don't you have a dog? Like, you should have dogs. Dogs should be part of your everyday life. You should have dogs. You should have working dogs. Dogs are great, right? You need more dogs walking around. You need some more man dogs too, like mastiffs, like Akitas, like my personal favorite Rhodesian Ridgebacks. Your dog culture is weak. All right, let's get serious again. You used to be Vikings. What happened to you? You used to be Vikings. You were warriors. It seemed to me a little bit like you guys were kind of, like, not ashamed of that, but trying to downplay it. People all over the world admire Vikings, especially because they were pagans and they saw the beauty of Christ and they converted and were a powerful force for Christianity. They went all over the world to expel Muslims from places they invaded and were killing and enslaving Christians and spread and kept the faith. But as a warrior culture, they were one of the greatest warrior cultures in history. What happened to you, Norway? You don't even let your citizens carry knives around. As an American that wakes up and puts a gun on his hip, generally to go outside, like, let's put the guns on the table, we'll come back to that, but you don't even let your citizens carry pocket knives. That disgusts me. What do you think your Viking ancestors would say if you're like, oh, we don't let our people carry knives? What do you think Harold the Bluetooth would have done if you'd have told him that? Oh, we don't, we're too civilized. We don't let our people carry knives. Like, that would be barbaric. Are you freaking kidding me? Good men should have the capacity for violence as a whole, as a culture. There might be individuals that are pacifists, and I'm not here to judge that. If that's your calling, just like some men in the Bible are called not to drink. Some men can be pacifists. That's not part of their plan. But Jesus tells his disciples to carry swords. Not every single one, but he calls his disciples to carry swords. Look at the Gospel of Luke. Let he who has no sword sell his cloak and buy one. You don't even let your people carry knives. You used to be Vikings. What happened? You used to be warriors. You did not progress past that. You regressed into a weak people. I don't mean weak like physically. I mean weak as in your ability.
Hello, it is Ryan, and I was on a flight the other day playing one of my favorite social spin slot games on ChumbaCasino.com. I looked over at the person sitting next to me, and you know what they were doing? They were also playing Chumba Casino. Everybody's loving having fun with it. Chumba Casino is home to hundreds of casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com to claim your free welcome bonus. That's ChumbaCasino.com and live the Chumba life.
Sponsored by Chumba Casino.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
Ability as a people to wield violence, to be a violent man, to be a violent culture. What happened to you? You used to be Vikings. You should not be downplaying that. You should be embodying that. Strong warriors for Christ. What are you doing, Norway? Give me a freaking break. Can't carry a pocket knife. Can't carry a knife. Can't carry a gun. You can own guns in Norway, but carrying a knife or a gun for defense is not a legitimate use. You can freaking pound sand with that crap. Why is every man there not armed if he wants to be? I'm not saying that's not a shall not every man shall be armed, but I believe that he who has no sword, let him sell his cloak and buy one. You should be armed. You should have the capacity to wield violence and the meekness to control it when it's not necessary, but the ability to be violent for righteous reasons when it's called for. What have you done? You used to be Vikings. All right, let's go a little bit more lighthearted. I commended you in the first one about your getting out and the hiking. Hiking seems like Norway's national pastime. But here's the thing. Where's the upper body workouts? In America, it's kind of a running joke that a lot of Americans that are fit, that do work out, which sadly I think is the minority. But of those that do, it's kind of that, it's a running joke that, oh, you skip leg day because upper body is what's really important. I disagree with that. But you, as a whole, I think, have kind of gone the reverse and only done leg day and skipped upper body day. I imagine your Viking ancestors that rode across the ocean could have done some pull-ups, could have done some push-ups. Hiking is great, cardio is great, rucking is great, running is great, and you guys seem to be doing a good job at that. But what about the upper body? Don't skip upper body. Have some upper body strength. I said that the average Norwegian, I think, is in better shape than the average American. That should not be our bar. The average American is grossly out of shape. Your goal should be really good shape. And that includes upper body. So, maybe hit the gym a little bit more or do some pull-ups, push-ups, some more upper body exercises. And I can generally tell looking at a man if he puts any kind of effort or significant effort into upper body strength. And there was a few in Norway, but not many. Hit the upper body harder. All right, I feel like that was kind of in the middle. So let me give some more lighthearted stuff here. Your lack of spice is disturbing. I like hot, spicy food. The hottest thing we could find at the grocery stores we went to was crushed red pepper. I looked at the spicy index. They put it at like a 7. I would have put it at about a 2. We were putting like large quantities of it on our food to get a little bit of spice. You should realize that there are really hot peppers out there, and they're awesome. Get some ghost pepper, get some reaper pepper. Maybe you got to work your way up to it. You might have to individually have it shipped from somewhere else, but some really good hot spicy food. And I'm not talking about like it's supposed to be spicy like Indian curry. I'm talking about like blow your mind spicy. You need some more spice in your life, especially when it's cold outside. I mean, you're Norway. So get a little bit of hot spicy food. Here's one thing that surprised me in Norway. The lack of native Norwegians. Going to Oslo, going to Bergen. I don't know how many men I would meet walking down the street named Harold versus how many men on the street I would meet named Mohammed. But a lot of, especially Muslim immigrants. And I have been praying about this. I'm not going to talk really in depth about it because I want to do a whole episode about, is it Muslim immigration or Muslim invasion? And this does not just affect you. But I was surprised in Norway at how many immigrants, a big chunk of them Muslim, from Persian Muslims as far as Iran. There was a protest, I think, against America about, the bombing of Iran, like in one of the cities when I was there. That really surprised me. But it seems like a bunch of your immigrants are either pagans or Muslims. Pagans as in literal pagans, like people from India that worship cows. Which maybe read Exodus. Maybe don't worship cows. That's a stupid thing to do. And a bunch of Muslims, whether they be Persian, Iranian Muslims, Iraqi Muslims, North African Muslims from places like Somalia. A chunk of the world's Muslims today are Asian. But a ton of Muslim immigrants. Now, if they are strangers and sojourners, you are to love them as yourself. The most loving thing you can do is make them Christian. Stop it with this political incorrect bullcrap. I don't care. If you want that, go turn on the local news. I'm sure you'll get all kinds of politically correct stuff there. Jesus says, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me, or except by me. It's also written, there's no other name under heaven by which men can be saved. If you really love your neighbor, you want them to be Christian, period. Because without that, they're going to die and burn in eternity in hell. So if you really love them, you want them to be Christian. Getting back to one of my further points, you as a nation should turn back to Christ and be stronger in the faith. You should be preaching to them that you fled. Is a great point that I heard somewhere else, but a great point is that you fled a Muslim country to come to a Christian country. Why? Because our Christian heritage made it better. Because Christ is better than your religion. I know Muslims believe in Jesus. They believe that he was a person that existed. They don't believe that he was the Son of God, and they don't believe that he rose from the dead. You need to explain how and why that's important, which means you need to know it. You need to know why Christianity is better than anything else out there, why it's the only true religion, and you had better be preaching it. If they are, in fact, strangers or sojourners, the other flip side of that, are they invaders? And going back to your Viking roots, you went and, expelled the Muslims from places like Sicily. Which, if you don't know, my family came here from Sicily. My mom came over from Sicily when she was 5. She came before that and went back and came back when she was 5. But my last name, Melito, means warrior in Latin, which I always thought was cool. And I could trace my ancestry back in Sicily like 1,000 years. I'm blonde-haired and blue-eyed. And an unusual last name for a Sicilian. Just imagine an Englishman being named Warrior as a last name. That's where we get the word militia, and military comes from my last name, Melito, which means soldier or warrior. Well, I did some research, had my DNA tested. My wife got me that as a gift a while ago, and I'm almost all northwestern European. It doesn't get any more northwestern European than Norway. Well, I found out that part of the Crusades was sending Norwegians to Sicily to kill the Muslims. They did a good job because I have almost all, I have pretty much like 90 something percent Northwestern European DNA and 0 Arab DNA. I think 0 of any of that DNA, African, whatever. You guys did a good job expelling Muslim invaders, because that was a Christian nation that got invaded by Muslims. And now it seems like you're inviting Muslim invasion, if it is in fact an invasion. I looked at this, and if this is true, it seems like the native Norwegians have a birth rate of around 1 point something. If it's true, the stuff that I heard, Muslims have a birth rate of about 5. You don't have to be great at math to know that you have a serious problem there if you want your Norway to stay Norwegian. Maybe you don't. Maybe you don't care. Maybe it's not my place to say. Again, if immigration is great, if they're upholding, and here's the thing about this, getting back to what God says in the law, you shall have the same law, and it should be Judeo-Christian law, God's law, not Sharia law, not some stupid pagan law where you worship cows and make everybody be a vegetarian, or where, but God's law. You should have the same law for the stranger and the native, and that includes like Judeo-Christian customs. When they come in, they're supposed to obey that law. There's not 2 sets of laws. If you look at 800-year history, is that right? Maybe a little bit less. Islam is a pretty new religion as far as compared to Judaism and Christianity. But they have a history of going into Christian countries and killing them, enslaving their women, using their women's bodies without consent to keep this semi-kid friendly, and killing Christians, expelling Christians, and changing it to a Muslim culture. Are they going to do that in Norway? I don't know. Again, is it immigration, where you can convert them to Christ, or is it a Muslim invasion? That is something that you have to wrestle with. We've seen that in other places. Look at what happened in Egypt. That was for what was Christian and is now Muslim. Look at what happened to the Christians in Iraq when the Muslims, started taking over. Look at Lebanon, Libya. Look at what happened to those Christians. When the Muslims get a foothold, Muslims are not known for tolerance, guys. So maybe not my place to say about your politics. I don't know that much about your politics. You want immigration, why not good, theologically sound Christian immigrants? But just, I was a little shocked at the lack of, native Norwegians or the abundance of Muslim immigrants. Again, let's say at best they are strangers and sojourners, not straight up hostile invaders. Need to be converting them to Christ, because that's the only way they live for eternity. Have, hopefully, hope there if you get back to your own Christian roots and you have a little bit of common ground there. They're not pagans like people from India, generally Hindus. They do believe in one God. Have that in common. They do believe that Jesus existed. You have that. But that is a serious situation there, so you had better pay attention to it. Again, if you want Norway to stay Norwegian, and maybe you don't care, and by Norwegian I mean a classic Christian culture light in the world. And I could say very similar things about America. That's not the topic of today. We're talking about Norway. But on America and Norway, you guys seem to really be importing a lot of American culture. And not the good stuff. Like a lot of really good American stuff you can import. Like peanut butter. Like barbecue. Like the Second Amendment. But it seems to be you're importing a lot of the garbage. Like you're like woke light. I think I maybe saw one transgender person when I was there, or somebody that was, mentally ill, very confused, thinking they were another gender or dressing like another gender, which is forbidden, by the way, in God's law. But I saw more than one pride flag when I was there. should not be.
How to have fun anytime, anywhere. Step 1. Go to ChumbaCasino.com.
ChumbaCasino.com. Got it.
Step 2. Collect your welcome bonus.
Come to Papa welcome bonus.
Step 3. Play hundreds of casino-style games for free.
That's a lot of games. All for free?
Step 4. Unleash your excitement.
Chumba Casino has been delivering thrills for over a decade. So claim your free welcome bonus now and live the Chumba life. Visit ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
Proud of being gay, it is an abomination, says the Lord. Don't be adopting that stupid crap that we have been infested with here. It's like a virus of the mind, of the morals. It's like a cancer. There's no amount of it that's okay to tolerate. Be careful about just because it's American doesn't make it good. I love America, but there's a lot of stuff that's happened recently in America that I don't love. We have our foibles and follies and abominations too. So just because it's American doesn't make it good. All right, let's end on a lighter note here. I have some other stuff, but I think I've hammered you guys pretty hard here. So, coffee, you guys have it, and you guys have a great array of dairy. I think I had some of the best cheese in my life in Norway. You guys have awesome cheese. You guys have awesome dairy. You guys have awesome butter. Why is it that the vast majority of places I went to, they don't seem to have a lot of variety in their dairy for coffee? You can put milk in coffee. It's fine. It's fine. Have you ever put heavy whipping cream in coffee? It will blow your mind. It will blow your mind. You guys have Brunos. Why don't you have Brunos lattes? I didn't see one. And we have a thing in America called half and half. It's almost as good as heavy cream. Look into half and half. Look into heavy cream for your coffee. It's awesome. You guys should look into it. All right, with that, guys, I want to close with this because I think the majority of people listening to this are going to be American. I'll probably put this out also on Gunfighter Life. It's going to come out first on Alpha Male Podcast. If you're into guns, you probably know about Gunfighter Life if you're listening to this. But if comfort, leisure, woke ideology can disarm a population that used to be Vikings, be careful here in America. Don't think it can't happen here. They were Vikings. They're not even allowed to carry pocket knives now. They used to be Vikings. Don't think it can't happen here in America. We are blessed to live in a place where we can carry a sword. I mean that like a modern sword is a handgun or whatever you want to carry. Don't take that for granted here, and don't think that it can't go away. Comfort and ease can be an addicting drug. Don't fall victim to it. If Vikings can be disarmed by their government, I think largely through comfort and, it's just easier. If they can lose their warrior culture, America beware. All right, with that, guys, tactical verse of the day, since we've said it, one of my favorites, but does it ever get old? Let he who has no sword sell his cloak and buy one. With that, thanks for listening and have a blessed day. What is going on, alpha males? I am coming at you today from Norway, Vaga, Norway. I thought I would do part 1 of a part 2, or of a 2-part series on Norway, God willing. Part 1 will be things that I really like about Norway from an American's perspective. Coming from America, I've traveled abroad, but like as an American, red-blooded, hairy-chested, gun-toting, Western, wild U.S., Wild West, cowboy country American coming to Norway. Things I like about it. That's what we're going to talk about today on Alpha Male Podcast, where we talk about what it means to be a man the right way with God at the center, Judeo-Christian values, and real-world first-hand experience. Let's get into Norway. The first thing I am going to talk about is the food. The Norwegians are tall, big people. My wife and I coming here are way, way smaller than the average native Norwegian. They're just giants. Part of that, I think, is because of the food. The food is really, really good. And by that, I mean it tastes good and it's really, really healthy. But just a case in point, my wife and I are pretty healthy eaters. I'm a pretty strict guy when it comes to what I'll put in the temple that God gave me to dwell in, my body, the dwelling of the Holy Spirit, the temple of the Holy Spirit. I'm pretty picky about what I'll put in there. A lot of places I go in America, even though there may be more stuff, the majority of the stuff I won't eat. I just don't consider it proper human food. The majority of stuff in Norway, I would consider really good food. We went out to eat once. We're not big on going out to eat in America, but we figured we'd go out once in Norway. And the restaurant we went to, a lot of times in America, I'll have to look at a restaurant that has anything that I will eat. The vast majority of stuff they had there, I would eat because I would consider it real, proper human food. And very good, high quality, high protein, high healthy fat diet of the Norwegians. Salmon, cod, reindeer, beef, lamb, a ton of dairy, including milk. The butter is phenomenal. There's so many different kinds of cheese here. There's one of my favorite things I've only ever seen in Norway. Brown cheese, brunost, or as I jokingly call Brundencheeser, but Norwegian brown cheese. It looks like brown cheese. It is phenomenal. It tastes totally different. It tastes like it's somewhere in the dairy family. Doesn't taste like any cheese you've ever had. It is phenomenal. But a ton of really good, high quality dairy. The butter tastes so much better than most stuff you'd get in America. Again, the good, high quality protein. The food here is phenomenal. That is one of the things that I really like so far about Norway. Let's see if I missed anything here. It's fairly healthy food, and the Norwegians as a people seem fairly health conscious. Not only is there a lot of really good, what I would call proper human food, meat and fish and dairy, and green vegetables, but there's a lot of specific health food here too, especially for such a small area, small communities. There's sections of health food. I think that is great. So they seem to be, the Norwegians, pretty big on healthy food. For instance, when you go into an American store, a grocery store, you'll have and this was an old tip if you've listened to Alpha Male for a really long time, when I talked about being in shape and being fit. I talked about when you go into a grocery store, go around the outside of the store. Forget about most of the stuff on the inside of the aisles. Most of the stuff on the outside of the store is fresh. That's where you're going to find your fresh meat, your eggs, your fresh vegetables. All that stuff's going to be on the outside of the store. And the vast majority in America on the inside of the store is preservatives, stuff in a box, stuff that's, going to last, 20 years, Twinkies, Ho-Hos, Pop-Tarts. Those things are all in the middle. The ratio of good fresh food, what I would call on the outside of the store, and the aisles on the inside of the store, there is a way, way better ratio. Just making up numbers I can think of in my head that's not scientific. I would say in America it's 30-70. 30% real food and 70% artificially food-like substances. And in Norway, I would consider it more 60-40, 60% fresh and 40% food-like substances, things like ramen noodles and stuff. So I would consider it a far, far better ratio. Another big thing is we'll get to that in another portion, but their history here. I love their history here. Part of the reason I came here. The Viking heritage, the Viking ancestry. I can think of no cooler heritage. These were a brave warrior, Scandinavian people. And when they contacted the beauty of and the truth of Christianity, they adopted it en masse fairly early. Even though they were the dominant warriors or dominant, fighters, they didn't convert to Christianity by military conquest. They weren't forced to it by the sword. They saw the beauty and the truth. And they thought things like, perhaps we shouldn't be sacrificing our children to some stupid pagan deity. Perhaps we shouldn't be doing these pagan practices and worshiping trees and the moon and all this other garbage. Perhaps we should worship the one true and only God and his saving grace in his son Jesus Christ. And they en masse adopted it. I have seen so many beautiful things here, but the most beautiful things that I have seen are the ancient churches here. Adopted again, not long after they came into contact with Christians in what I would call more Central Europe. It's a beautiful history and a beautiful culture, and the rest of their history and culture is beautiful too. And I talked about the churches, their church architecture, their stave churches and their ancient churches. Like I've been to two from the 1200s. Just phenomenal. But that crosses over into another part that I really like about Norway is their architecture. And I'm talking like log cabins that would put anything I've ever seen in America and the American frontier to shame. I was talking about this to the landowner whose land we're on right now. We're staying at a little farmstead out in the country in Baga. And the cabins here, they are made in such a manner that the logs fit precisely together. In America, it's common to see log and then mortar, and then log and then mortar to fill in the cracks so you can more crudely build it. These are built so as you can't see light or have air come through the cracks in the logs. Even though some of these houses are hundreds and hundreds or 1,000 years old, they're still like solid, and they're joined together with just log on log. I don't know how they do it or how they did it, but the craftsmanship and I'm looking at it right now through the window, and these just what you would think of like Lincoln log style, except there's no gaps. I don't know how they did that, but their woodscraft, their carpentry, all those skills, just amazing. And just the fact that they make so many things ornate.
It is Ryan Seacrest here. There was a recent social media trend which consisted of flying on a plane with no music, no movies, no entertainment. But a better trend would be going to ChumbaCasino.com. It's like having a mini social casino in your pocket. Chumba Casino has over 100 online casino-style games, all absolutely free. It's the most fun you can have online and on a plane. So grab your free welcome bonus now at ChumbaCasino.com. Sponsored by Chumba Casino.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
That don't have to be ornate, like just the ends of the woods or the door frames or the things in the just day-to-day life. They saw a purpose and a fulfillment in making beauty in that, and intricate carvings and woodworking. Just beautiful. And just again, their architecture, their wooden architecture is just amazing. And the fact that it stands for hundreds or 1,000 years is just phenomenal. So their architecture here I really like. Tying into that culturally, their language. I really like Norwegian. I also especially like the fact that both English and, Norwegian came from like a Proto-Germanic language. So although it's hard for me to understand when they're talking, especially talking at normal conversational speed, it is not nearly as hard to understand their writing. I can decipher much of it just by knowing English, and that's also a Germanic language. But I like the way they phonetically spell stuff with their letters. It makes a lot of sense to me, and I like the beauty and history of their language. I like the language family. I like that Scandinavian kind of language. I really like the language. It is beautiful. It seemed to me that the Norwegians had a much better work-life balance than Americans. And I really like that. And I double-checked that by looking it up, and it says that Norway has the best work-life balance in Europe. It is great. People aren't working themselves to death for an extra $1. They are working some, being productive, and enjoying their life and their family and their friends and their community. And I think that we have that. There's nothing wrong with hard work. I work hard. Don't get me. I work 2 jobs, right? But I think they have it better here. One day remember you will die. One day you will die. And although we will rise again, the dead will rise again in Jesus. Right? I do believe that. Our time on this earth probably is better spent than just working our fingers to the bone and then dying for an extra $1 that we're not going to take with us. Naked you came into this world and naked you're going to leave. The Norwegians seem to have a much better work-life balance. So I really like that. And also one of the things I've noticed that all the people we've talked to, my wife and I, not once, even in pretty in-depth, long conversations, not once have we been asked what we do for a living. Not once. I'm sure if we got to know somebody in more intimately, like a deep relationship, they would probably ask at some point. But in America, that's like the first thing they ask. Oh, what's your name? Oh, what do you do? As if, I think sadly in America, a lot of people's self-worth or how they view the worth of another person is based on their job. And I like what I do. I'm proud of what I do. But I don't think that should be how we judge people. And although people wouldn't admit that, I think a lot of in American culture, that's how people judge other people. What do you do? And the inference there is, how much money do you make? And how much of value are you as a person? Which has nothing to do with your value as a person. I like the fact that in Norway I have yet to be asked what I do. Or my wife, what do you do? Which is not something people really care about or talk about, which I think is fantastic. Talking about, I said I would come back to this, but the healthy lifestyle. Norwegians are far and away, just by my scientific eyeball observation, looking at people, are way, way healthier as a whole than Americans. They're way more active, they're way healthier. Americans, sadly, today, they think of exercise is getting their steps in. In Norway, getting your steps in is just life. The amount of people, even in small towns here, that we've seen out running and jogging and hiking, it is far above what you would see in America. They seem to be a lot more active, a lot more running and biking, and just the amount of people we see running on a daily basis is phenomenal. In the larger cities, there are a lot of parks that have workout equipment in them, just free to use, which I used when I was in a larger city. Just fantastic, right? That is great. I think as a whole, they're a far healthier people. Now, you could probably look that up, but I'm almost certain that would be vindicated. They are just a way healthier people as a whole. Also, unlike other places I've been in Europe, like Italy, and spent a lot of time in, smoking is not common here. Smoking is way more common in places like the American South or in like Italy. It seems like many adults smoke, which blows my mind that people still do that in 2025, but it's very rare here in Norway. I'm not saying nobody does it, but it's very rare, which I think is fantastic. It goes into that whole healthy lifestyle, people being health conscious. I like that. I think that is a good thing. So especially compared to the rest of Europe and especially America, as far as the healthiness of the diet, healthiness of the lifestyle, way far and above, better. I think that's great. The other thing that I really like about Norway is the population density. Norway is a fairly big country by European standards. It's about the size of Montana, which is one of our larger of the 50 states. Not big by American standards, but big by European country standards. It has 5 million people. For a comparison, Montana has about 1 million people. So it's got more population density than Montana, which is an area that, we kind of come from that greater Yellowstone ecosystem, Idaho, Wyoming, Montana, but that's rare in America. To put that in perspective, just Los Angeles County has, I just looked it up and I forgot, Los Angeles County has almost 10 million people in the county. That's twice as many as the entire country of Norway. And if you're more familiar with Europe, Germany has about 15 times, per the ones that I looked up today, 15 times the population of Norway. So as far as population density goes, and I'm a low population density guy. That's my style. Like if I've seen 2 people in a day, I may have seen too many people. To give you an idea. Like as far as Europe goes, low population density in Norway. There's a couple of big cities, Oslo, Bergen, but outside of that, it's pretty small, rural townish. Different culture, different language. But if you're from rural, small town, I would say Western America, even maybe Western Midwest, the Dakotas, North Dakota, South Dakota, and over west up until you get to, the middle of Washington, Oregon, it would be kind of that. It's really nice, and the landscape is beautiful. The landscape reminds me a lot of northern Idaho, the American Idaho rainforest, real thick, dense, rolling hills, decent, really good arid farmland, arable farmland, and it kind of is a mix between northern Idaho and southeast Alaska, because we've also lived in southeast Alaska. The views are beautiful, the land is beautiful, the water's clean, unlike a lot of places in Europe. It's really nice population density-wise and scenery-wise. One of the other just small things that I'll mention that we like is the lack of TV. Now, my wife and I, we don't own a TV normally. We live off-grid normally, which is very unusual for an American. We don't have TV. None of the places we've stayed at so far have had a TV, which I think is phenomenal. You know what humans don't need more of? TV. So I like that. I don't know if that's real common in Norway, or it's probably less common. They probably watch less TV than Americans. I'm just going to go to limb and say that, but I like that. That's refreshing. And my number one thing that I like about Norway is the Christian heritage. I'll talk more about how that's slipping, and hopefully, God willing, part 2, where I talk about things I don't like about Norway. But a strong, robust Western European Christian foundation. Beautiful churches. Even some of their sewer grates I saw were like a design of crosses. Just beautiful. Their early Christian adoption up into, the Protestant Reformation, and just how it shaped their culture historically. Just historically a bastion of beautiful European Christian culture, which has been a bright, shining light in a dark world. A world full of pagans, a world full of Muslims. This historically has been a bright, shining light for over 1,000 years. And that is beautiful. And I really enjoy that and appreciate that. Getting back to my favorite things here are going into those, 1,000-year-old-ish churches. It's amazing. Seeing artifacts from from the First Crusade. I believe one of the men, if not the main leader of the First Crusade, was Norwegian. Was a Norwegian knight. Just amazing Christian heritage and culture. That's my favorite thing about Norway. Anyway, with that, guys, if you're not already subscribed, hopefully you will. If you want to hear part 2, God willing, I'll get to it on things I do not like about Norway. But hopefully you like this episode, something quite a bit different. But that doesn't mean if you're American or Italian or German, you can't adopt some things you can't really do anything about unless you live in America and you move to the Intermountain West. But things like population density, but things like the food you eat and the lifestyle that you live, those are things that you can control. So consider that. Oh, you know what? Before I sign off, one more thing about the Norwegians. They haven't seemed to fall in prey to this woke ideology of men and women are the same. Women here dress very much like women. Beautiful, elegant, understated. And then men dress like men. Imagine that. That's a nice bonus, too. Not my favorite thing, but that's, sadly, in American culture, that's kind of a big deal. So, anyway, I thought I'd throw that in there since it wasn't in my notes, but I just thought about it. I appreciate you guys. I appreciate all that you do. Again, subscribe, leave a review, consider becoming a patron. Thanks for listening and have a blessed day.